And that, my dear Kixel, is why we never ever tell a human they look cute when angry, Zixanax rumbled, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting through shades of amused azure as he regarded his youngling. The small Vandurian, barely the size of a human child, tilted her head crest in confusion. Her own exoskeleton flickered between curious yellow and puzzled green. But Father Creator, I still don't understand. The historical archives show we were once preparing to conquer their entire solar system. Now we're their most steadfast allies. What changed? Zixanax settled into his relaxation pod, the bioluminescent lighting of their home chamber dimming to match his thoughtful mood. Through the panoramic viewport, Earth's gleaming cities sparkled below their orbital habitat like scattered stardust. Ah, now that's quite the tale, one that still makes the Grand Council's crystals crack with embarrassment. He gestured toward the planet below. 50 years ago, we Vandurians were, let's say, slightly full of ourselves. Okay, fine, we were insufferable cosmic snobs. We'd mastered faster-than-light travel, developed crystalline biotechnology, and hadn't encountered a single species that could match our military might. Then we met humans. Kixel's secondary eyes widened. The archives say we thought they were primitive because they still used chemical rockets. Oh, we were so much worse than that, Zixanax chuckled, his crystalline surface rippling with self-deprecating humor. We looked at their divided nations, their constant conflicts, their bizarre obsession with recording themselves doing dangerous stunts, and we thought they'd be easy prey. In fact, our first official report to the Grand Council labeled them as, and I quote, a species so backwards they still think launching themselves into space inside controlled explosions is a good idea. His youngling giggled, the sound like wind chimes in a breeze. That doesn't sound very diplomatic, Father Creator. Diplomatic, we made first contact by sending them a formal declaration of superiority, written in interpretive crystal formations. We genuinely expected them to surrender on the spot, overwhelmed by our artistic sophistication. Zixanax's exoskeleton flushed embarrassed purple. Would you like to know what they did instead? Kixel leaned forward eagerly, her crystalline structure practically vibrating with curiosity. They sent back a response in what they called emoji, thousands of tiny yellow faces, arranged to spell out LOL, visible from orbit. Our xenolinguists spent 3 months trying to decode what they assumed was an ancient mystical script, only to discover it was essentially the human equivalent of pointing at us and laughing. But if we were so hostile, Kixel wondered, her head crest swaying thoughtfully, why do we now have a sworn duty to protect them? The archives say we would sacrifice our entire fleet to save even a single human colony. Zixanax's crystalline surface shifted to a warm gold, the color of fondness in Vandurian emotion spectrum. That, my curious one, is because humans taught us something no other species had in all our centuries of space exploration. They showed us that true strength isn't in technological superiority or military might, it's in... He paused dramatically, all 4 of his eyes twinkling. In what, Father Creator? Kixel almost bounced with anticipation. Well, that's quite a story, one that involves a confused scout, something humans call ghost peppers, and the strangest war dance you've ever heard of. You see, Zixanax continued, settling deeper into his pod as memories crystallized, our first real observation of human culture went spectacularly wrong. We sent our most elite cultural analysis team to something called a metal concert in a place they called Norway. Kixel's exoskeleton rippled with anticipation. Why would they study metal? We'd already mastered metallurgy centuries ago. That's exactly what our team thought, Zixanax laughed, the sound like tinkling crystal. They expected to find primitive smelting techniques. Instead, they found 10,000 humans gathered in an open field, all screaming at the top of their lungs while rhythmically slamming their bodies into each other. He projected a holographic recording from his memory crystal. The scene showed humans in black clothing, their hair whipping in synchronized motions while what seemed like pure acoustic warfare blasted from enormous speakers. The team's initial report was, well, let me read it directly. Species has developed sonic warfare capabilities beyond our expectations. Their warriors enter a berserker trance through ritual head thrashing, presumably to ignore pain. Their battle cry, which sounds like more, 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 suggests an insatiable bloodlust. Most concerning, they have mastered mass mind control through what they call The mosh pit, a warrior training ground where they practice tactical combat while under the influence of their sonic weapons. Kixel's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. They thought it was military training. Oh, it gets better. Zixanax's color shifted to embarrassed purple again when the lead singer shouted, "Let me see your hands in the air." Our team believed it was a surrender demand, but when all the humans raised their hands and continued their war dance, we concluded they were immune to standard surrender protocols. The final straw came when humans started forming crowd walls, literally splitting into two groups before charging at each other. He projected another hologram showing the infamous Wall of Death at the concert. Our chief military advisor watched this footage and immediately ordered our fleet to full battle stations. His exact words were, "Any species that celebrates combat this enthusiastically must be contained before they discover interstellar travel." "But Father Creator," Kixel interrupted, her crystals chiming with confusion, "didn't anyone try to actually talk to the humans?" "We did. We sent our most sophisticated diplomatic unit to what we believed was their supreme military commander, the lead guitarist of a band called Death Clock. The unit arrived backstage, performed our sacred crystal harmony of peace, and was immediately handed something called a backstage pass and a beer." Zixanax's exoskeleton flickered through a rainbow of embarrassed colors as he continued. The diplomatic unit, completely baffled by human behavior, decided to attempt communication through what they assumed was the humans' preferred method, extremely loud noise. They activated their emergency klaxons at full volume. "What happened?" The humans cheered. They thought it was part of the show. Some of them even started imitating the alarm sound while doing their head-thrashing ritual. Our diplomatic unit retreated in confusion, reporting that humans had somehow weaponized chaos itself. The story was interrupted by a proximity alert. A human ship was passing nearby. Kixel watched in fascination as the massive vessel's speakers blasted what her father creator had called metal into space, the crew apparently enjoying their patrol duty. "The funniest part," Zixanax added, watching the ship pass, "was our first actual skirmish. We attempted to intimidate a human vessel by broadcasting our most terrifying battle hymns. The humans responded by patching in something called Raining Blood by Slayer. Half our audio sensors overloaded, and our tactical officer had to be treated for crystal resonance shock. Our subsequent attempts at intimidation went equally well. We tried showing them our fearsome combat techniques. They asked if we could teach them our sweet dance moves. We demonstrated our advanced energy weapons. They wondered if we could help set up their next concert's light show. We even unleashed our dreaded sonic disruptors. They called it a sick beat and requested the MP3. It took us embarrassingly long to realize that what we thought was a warrior culture was actually just humans having fun. By then, we'd already filed 17 reports about their combat rituals, including something called crowd surfing, which we seriously believed was some kind of human levitation technique. Kixel's crystals chimed with laughter. "We really didn't understand them at all, did we?" "Not even slightly," Zixanax admitted, "but that was just the beginning of our misunderstandings. Wait until you hear about what happened when we discovered something humans call social media." "So there we were," Zixanax continued, his crystalline form shimmering with remembered amusement. "The High Command had gathered for what they believed would be a simple invasion planning session. Grand Admiral Vixithor, his exoskeleton polished to an intimidating shine, stood before the strategic holomap declaring, 'The humans are clearly savage warriors. We must strike before they master space travel and spread their chaos across the galaxy.'" Kixel leaned forward, entranced. "What changed their minds?" "Well, our top intelligence operative, Agent Nixera, had just finished her first deep dive into something humans called the Internet. She burst into the command chamber, her crystals flickering between confused yellow and bewildered green, frantically projecting what she'd discovered. The memory crystal displayed the scene, the entire Vandurian High Command watching in stunned silence as an endless stream of cat videos played before them. "Behold," she declared, "the humans' most sacred viewing material. They spend billions of collective hours watching small furry creatures knock objects off elevated surfaces." The Grand Admiral's exoskeleton went completely transparent, a rare sign of total confusion. "Surely," he said, "these must be combat training videos. Perhaps the creatures are testing gravity weapons. Zixanax's crystals chimed with laughter. Then Agent Nixera played them something called Keyboard Cat. The Strategic Planning Division spent 3 weeks trying to decode what they assumed was a sophisticated military communication transmitted through the medium of primitive musical instruments and domesticated fauna. But Father Creator, Kixel interrupted, her secondary eyes widening. Why would a species obsessed with sonic warfare worship such tiny creatures? That's exactly what puzzled us. We launched an entire series of reconnaissance missions focused solely on understanding the human-feline relationship. The reports were interesting. His crystals shifted to display another memory. Mission Report 1. Humans appear to willingly share their dwellings with these cats, despite the creature's clear disdain for human authority. Possible evidence of mind control. Mission Report 2. Humans purchase elaborate climbing structures for their feline overlords and speak to them in high-pitched voices. Have they been reduced to servant status? Mission Report 3. Update. Humans also worship creatures called dogs, who appear to be resistance fighters against the cat regime. Both species are given treats for reasons we cannot comprehend. But the real chaos started when we discovered memes, Zixnax continued. Our cultural analysis AI nearly had a meltdown trying to understand why humans would deliberately misspell words like cheeseburger when referring to their feline masters. He projected another memory, showing a confused Van Durian linguistics expert staring at an image of Grumpy Cat. This poor scholar spent a month writing a thesis on how this particular cat must be a supreme military commander given how often its image was shared. His conclusion was that humanity had submitted to feline rule, and we should be negotiating with the cats instead. The reconnaissance missions just got more confusing from there, Zixanax chuckled. We sent a stealth team to observe a human population center, only to witness thousands of humans walking around, staring at their communication devices, trying to capture invisible creatures they called Pokemon. The mission commander's report read, humans have developed some form of mass hallucination technology. They appear to be training for combat against imaginary beings that only they can see. Their dedication to warfare extends even to their leisure activities. Kixel's crystals pulsed with curiosity. Didn't anyone realize they were just playing games? Eventually, but not before we'd compiled a 3,000-page report titled, Understanding Human Combat Training Methodologies. From cat videos to digital monster acquisition. The really embarrassing part was when we tried to demonstrate our superior technology by creating a holographic cat in the middle of a human city, thinking it would show we'd mastered their sacred imagery. What happened? Hundreds of humans immediately took out their phones to record it, started making jokes about glitch in the matrix, and someone turned it into a meme before we could even retreat. Our psychological warfare division had to admit defeat. How do you intimidate a species that turns everything, including potential alien invasions, into entertainment? His crystals flickered to show one final memory, the High Command watching in disbelief as humans turned their failed reconnaissance missions into viral videos and conspiracy theory YouTube channels. The final straw came when someone leaked our classified report about cat supremacy to human social media. It became a trending topic. Humans found it so entertaining that they started making fake, leaked alien documents about dog societies and something called meme warfare. We couldn't tell what was genuine intelligence anymore because humans were better at making up ridiculous theories about themselves than we were at studying them. So that's why we cancelled the invasion, Kixel asked, her crystals twinkling with amusement. Partially, Grand Admiral Vixithor officially declared, any species that can weaponize confusion this effectively is too dangerous to confront directly. But the real reason came later, when we finally understood something crucial about humanity. He paused, his crystals shifting to a more serious blue tone. We realized that any species that could maintain its sanity while being simultaneously ruled by cats, dogs, social media, and imaginary pocket monsters, all while making jokes about it, had a kind of strength we'd never encountered before. A species that could find joy in chaos, turn warfare into entertainment, and treat both technological marvels and cat videos with equal enthusiasm was either completely insane or operating on a level we couldn't comprehend. And which was it? Kixel asked eagerly. Zixanax's crystals sparkled with mirth. Oh, definitely both, but that's what makes them so special, and we hadn't even discovered their spicy food yet. Now this, Zixanax's crystals shifted to a warm orange of fond remembrance, is where things get really interesting. Have you heard of Scout Commander Rixatal? Kixil's crystals pulsed with recognition. The one they call the Spice Survivor? The very same, though back then he was just another scout who had the misfortune, or perhaps fortune, of crash landing in a place humans call Thailand. Zixanax projected the memory of a younger Van Durian, his crystalline structure slightly cracked from the crash landing. Our leadership expected the humans to either terminate or imprison him. Instead, something unprecedented happened. A local family found him, and despite not sharing a common language, immediately invited him into their home. Their first action, offering him something called Tom Yum Gung. The memory crystal showed Rixatal cautiously analyzing the steaming bowl before him. Now you have to understand, we Van Durians had never encountered the concept of spicy before. Our scientists had classified capsaicin as a defensive neurotoxin, so imagine Rixatal's confusion when he watched his hosts happily consuming what he assumed was weapons-grade chemical warfare. His first report back to command was pure panic. The humans are immune to neurotoxins. I repeat, immune to neurotoxins. They appear to consume them for pleasure. Send help. Kixel's crystals chimed with laughter, but surely he didn't try it. Oh, he did. His exact words in the mission log were, "In accordance with first contact protocols, I must analyze all aspects of human culture. If this is my end, tell the High Command that humans killed me with kindness and chemical weapons disguised as soup." The next memory projection showed Rixatal's crystals turning a never-before-seen shade of red as he experienced his first spoonful. The humans found his reaction so entertaining that they started introducing him to increasingly spicy dishes. Each time they'd say, "This one not too spicy, you try," which Rixatal eventually realized was a human joke, as it was invariably spicier than the last. But here's where it gets fascinating, Zixanax continued. Instead of being offended by this apparent torture, Rixatal began to understand something profound about humans. They weren't trying to harm him, they were inviting him to participate in what he termed recreational endurance training. The next projection showed Rixatal at a night market, surrounded by laughing humans, all sweating over plates of something ominously labeled Ghost Pepper Challenge. His follow-up report to command was even more bewildering. Humans deliberately seek out pain for entertainment. They have turned the consumption of defensive neurotoxins into a social activity. They rate their pain tolerance on a numeric scale and compete to increase it. This is either the most brilliant military training program I've ever encountered, or humans are collectively insane. Possibly both. P.S. Send digestive crystalline supplements. Kixel's secondary eyes widened. But how did this change our view of humans? Well, Rixatal's experience was just the beginning. As he spent more time with his host family, he discovered countless other examples of human resilience. They worked in scorching heat while complaining about it through humor. They ate foods that other species would consider biological weapons while rating them on something called TikTok. They deliberately sought out activities that caused physical discomfort, like exercise and democracy, and somehow emerged stronger. The memories continued to play, Rixatal learning to cook with his host family, his crystals gradually adapting to spice tolerance, even him attempting to use chopsticks, which led to another fascinating report about humans deliberately making food acquisition more difficult for cultural reasons. But the real breakthrough came during what humans call a family gathering. Rixatal watched in amazement as 3 generations of humans gathered to deliberately consume extremely spicy food, argue about politics, share embarrassing stories, and somehow strengthen their bonds through collective voluntary suffering. His final report to command changed everything. "I no longer believe we can consider humans a primitive species. Any civilization that can turn pain into pleasure, conflict into bonding, and chemical warfare into cuisine has transcended normal evolutionary patterns. They don't just survive adversity, they actively seek it out, learn to enjoy it, and emerge stronger. Most importantly, they have an inexplicable ability to make others want to join them in their beautiful insanity." Zixanax's crystals shifted to a thoughtful blue. The High Command was skeptical, of course, until Rixatal sent them a care package containing something called Carolina Reaper sauce. The resulting chaos in the command center involving several high-ranking officials discovering that crystalline beings can, indeed, breathe fire led to an immediate re-evaluation of human capabilities. Testing the source on themselves? Kixel asked incredulously. Why would they do that? Because humans had somehow managed something no species had ever done before. They'd made us curious about pain. We started to understand that human strength didn't come from their technology or their military might. It came from their bizarre ability to face discomfort head-on, laugh about it, and invite others to join in. The final memory projection showed Rick Sital at his host family's dinner table, his crystals glowing warm orange despite the spicy food, everyone laughing as he attempted to use chopsticks to eat something called pad kra pao. We had to admit that any species that could turn our feared scout commander into someone who willingly participated in spicy noodle challenges while singing karaoke was operating on a level we hadn't considered. The humans hadn't just survived contact with us, they'd somehow made us want to join their peculiar way of life. The official recommendation from Rick Sital changed our entire approach. Humans don't need to be conquered or contained. They need to be studied, appreciated, and possibly monitored to ensure they don't accidentally have too much fun and blow up their solar system. Also, request permanent assignment to Earth for further research into this pad thai thing. Kixel's crystals sparkled with understanding. So we learned to respect them through shared suffering. Not just respect, we learned to admire them. Any species that can make pain enjoyable turns social awkwardness into entertainment and somehow convince crystalline beings to voluntarily consume capsaicin has mastered something far beyond our understanding of evolution. But Father Creator, Kixel asked, her crystals pulsing with curiosity, what was the final thing that made us decide to protect them? Zixnax's crystals shifted to a knowing sparkle. That came when we discovered something even more remarkable about humans, their inexplicable habit of adopting anything they find either dangerous or adorable, sometimes both, but that's another story. The real epiphany, Zixnax continued, his crystals shifting to a deep, contemplative blue, came from our xenobiological research team's most embarrassing moment, and trust me, this is saying something for a species that once mistook a mosh pit for military training. He projected a memory of a Van Durian research vessel hovering above a human nature reserve. We'd dispatched our finest scientists to study human combat capabilities. Instead, they stumbled upon what humans call a wildlife sanctuary. Lead researcher Mixavan's first report was pure confusion. Humans are containing dangerous predators. To protect them, they're using their advanced technology to preserve creatures that could kill them. This makes no tactical sense. The projection shifted to show humans bottle-feeding baby tigers, rehabilitating injured eagles, and carefully approaching wounded predators to provide medical care. But that was just the start. The research team then discovered something called endangered species programs. Their report to High Command was practically hysterical. The humans are spending enormous resources to protect and repopulate species that natural selection has deemed unfit for survival. They are actively fighting evolution itself and winning. Kixel's crystals pulsed with curiosity. But why would they do that? That's exactly what puzzled us. Then we intercepted something called cute animal compilations on their internet. The research team watched in bewilderment as humans risked life and limb to rescue everything from tiny kittens to massive whales, often while saying, "Oh, look at its little face." The memories continued. Humans diving into frozen lakes to save dogs, climbing burning buildings for trapped pets, establishing entire organizations to protect species they'd never even met. The breakthrough came when our behavioral analysis AI finally crashed, trying to reconcile two sets of human actions. In one video, humans were running away from a disaster. In the next clip, different humans were running toward the same disaster to help. The AI's final output before shutdown was, error, species simultaneously demonstrates highest survival instinct and complete disregard for self-preservation. Does not compute. Zixnax's crystals sparkled with admiration. That's when we realized something extraordinary about humans. They're the only known species that will risk their own extinction to prevent the extinction of others. They'll fight to protect creatures that could kill them, preserve ecosystems that don't directly benefit them, and run toward dangers that every other rational species flees from. He projected another memory, this one showing humans coordinating a massive evacuation of a wildlife sanctuary during a forest fire. Look at this. They're risking their lives to save creatures that aren't even their own species. Our military strategists were baffled. One wrote, "Humans appear to have weaponized empathy. They've somehow turned their greatest vulnerability into their greatest strength." The final piece clicked when we discovered human entertainment. Their movies repeatedly showed them fighting against overwhelming odds to protect not just themselves, but any species or being they deemed worthy of salvation. At first we thought these were military propaganda. Then we realized humans actually believed they could win against impossible odds simply because they decided something was worth protecting. Kixel's crystals shifted to a thoughtful purple. Is that why we decided to protect them? Partially, but the real reason came from an incident that changed everything. A Vandurian scout ship was experiencing critical crystal lattice failure near a human settlement. According to every protocol, the humans should have destroyed the potential threat. Instead, the memory crystal showed humans rushing toward the failing ship, using their primitive technology to establish a containment field, risking radiation exposure to rescue the Vandurian crew. When asked why they helped their potential enemies, their response was simply, "Because you needed help." It was at that moment that the High Command understood something crucial. Humans weren't just another spacefaring species, they were something utterly unique, a species that had somehow evolved to be simultaneously the most dangerous and most nurturing force in the galaxy. The official declaration from High Command read, "We must protect humanity, not because they need our protection, but because the galaxy needs their particular brand of insanity. They are the only species we've encountered that will fight to the death to protect a creature they just met because it has, quote, cute little paws, while also being capable of turning anything, including their own son, into a weapon, if something threatens those they've decided to protect." Zixanax's crystals glowed with warm admiration. We realized that letting humanity advance into the galaxy unsupervised would be dangerous, not because they might destroy everything, but because they'd probably try to adopt every dangerous creature they encountered while simultaneously inventing new ways to defend their ever-growing collection of adorable death machines. So we appointed ourselves their protectors, not to keep them safe, but to help channel their chaotic good nature in productive ways. After all, any species that can turn the consumption of neurotoxins into a social activity while also fighting to protect creatures that literally eat them, well, they clearly need someone to help them maintain at least a semblance of sensible behavior. The memory crystal showed one final image, a human child sharing their ice cream with a bewildered Vandurian diplomat during the signing of the protection treaty. And that, my dear Kixel, is why we now serve as humanity's protectors. Because in all our centuries of space exploration, we never encountered another species that could make the entire galaxy simultaneously safer and more chaotic just by being themselves. Kexel's crystals chimed with understanding, so we protect them because they want to protect everything else. Exactly, though sometimes I think we're really just here to stop them from trying to pet every dangerous creature they encounter while calling it friend-shaped. Zixanax's crystals sparkled with amusement. Speaking of which, would you like to hear about the time humans discovered our crystalline young look like shiny space puppies? Kixel gazed out at the Earth below, watching as a human ship and a Vandurian cruiser conducted a joint patrol, their crews probably sharing those infamous spicy ramen challenges between shifts. But Father Creator, how do other species react to our alliance? Zixanax's crystals rippled with amusement. Oh, the Galactic Council is still trying to process it. Last month, the Zelaxians filed a formal complaint, stating that our behavior was becoming distressingly human-like. Apparently, our ambassador responded by showing them something called a meme compilation and saying, "Cope and seethe." He projected a recent memory of a diplomatic conference where a Vandurian delegation had attempted to ease tensions by sharing human-style jokes. We're still learning humor. Last week, Ambassador Tixpol tried to tell a dad joke during a crucial negotiation. He said, "Why don't crystalline beings like parties? Because they can't help being too reflective." Did it work? Kixel asked, her crystals twinkling. The humans laughed. The other species added another page to their report on our concerning behavioral changes. But that's the beauty of our alliance. Humans appreciate the effort, even when we fail spectacularly. They've taught us that sometimes the worst jokes get the best reactions. Through the viewport, they watched as a human child on the station promenade tried to teach a group of young Vandurians how to play hopscotch, their crystalline forms bouncing awkwardly but enthusiastically. You know, Zixanax mused, the Centaurians asked me yesterday why we let humans influence our culture so much. I told them it's because humans are the only species that can make failure look like an art form. They turn mistakes into memes, awkwardness into entertainment, and somehow convince everyone around them that being imperfect is perfectly fine. His crystals shifted to a warm, amused gold. Besides, who else would have taught us that our crystalline resonance patterns could be used to create something called dubstep? Kixel's secondary eyes widened. Is that why there's a human Vandurian band called Crystal Methodology? Indeed, though I'm still not sure if that name is clever or just painful. Speaking of pain. Zixanax's crystals took on the particular sparkle that Kixel had learned meant a human-style joke was coming. Why did the human and Vandurian open a restaurant together? Kixel prepared herself for what humans called a groan-worthy moment. Why? Because they wanted to create some crystal-clear flavors. His youngling's crystals flickered between amused and embarrassed. Father Creator, I think you've been spending too much time in the human entertainment districts. Probably, he admitted cheerfully, but as humans would say, if you can't beat them, join them. Though in our case we tried to beat them, got confused by them, and ended up protecting them because they're the only species crazy enough to make the galaxy a more interesting place. He glanced at his datapad, which was displaying notifications about human attempts to establish diplomatic relations with a newly discovered species that looked like, in their words, angry space jellyfish. Now want to hear about the time humans tried to teach our military commanders something called the Macarena?